welcome to Behind the Wrestler. This evening my guest is none other than Cam Owens III. Thank you very much for taking the time out and giving us an inside story. So first and foremost question is a generic question that I ask, and you're going to get asked this multiple times anyway. So who, when and where inspired you to become a professional wrestler?
Well, I've actually been doing it. I've been watching it for years. Like when I was like super young, I was watching it and it was like sick as. And then suddenly it's like I never really thought about it because I was too busy playing rugby and football and all that kind of stuff. I was like real sporty when I was younger. And then when I sort of fell out of love with them, I started getting back into wrestling. And I suddenly thought, why not? Because I need something to do. It's got, you know, it's got some acting and it's got a bit of, you know, like athleticism to it too. And yeah, that just suited me down to a T. Yeah, and it just really like the idea of wrestling and putting on a show and telling a story. Telling a story is the main thing. Yeah, and who inspired me? No one really. It's like something, like it was just something that I just kind of got into, and I just thought, you know what, I'll try it. And there was no sort of wrestler that really did that. I mean, after I started wrestling, it was like I started watching more wrestlers that inspired my character, but other than that, no, not really. Yeah.
Trying to find a wrestling school down here in Wellington. How did you know? First of all, how did you find out that there was wrestling in New Zealand, and how did you approach the idea of trying to find a training school?
Google.
Okay, Google. Easy, Google.
Yeah, Google. It's like I was thinking about it, and I was like, oh, I wonder if there's anywhere. And at the time, I was trying to get in contact with KPW, and they kind of went defunct. And at the time, I was messaging them, and they never got back to me. So a couple months later, I tried finding another place, and WPW came up. So I decided to, you know, go with WPW. Yeah, it was quite interesting, quite a journey for myself to go on the internet and find a wrestling school, because there's not as many around as you think there would be for something that's actually quite relatively popular.
First day of training, how was the thought process? What was the, you know, how did you prepare yourself to go into your first training, and how did you feel, obviously the next day from your first bumps and first slams and doing all of that? Yes, how did all that go?
My head hurt quite a bit, because obviously it's not something that's natural when you start. Yeah, first stuff was like rolls, pretty easy stuff. I like to think I picked it up pretty quickly, which was nice. But then bumping, when they taught me how to bump, it was a whole new world. I started getting dizzy because I don't, like, you know, there's little things like you don't bump all the time, and then you don't like do all this stuff, all this kind of stuff all the time, and it's like out my head. And I found actually that the handstand sort of like flip bump kind of stuff, where you got the 4-point stance, to be a lot easier to do than a straight 2-point stance. But yeah, it certainly hurt my head, and the next couple of days I had a little bit of a headache, had to take some Panadol. But yeah, going into it, I wasn't like, you know, excited, so I didn't really care. Like the adrenaline was going.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, at that point you don't care.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm happy to take it.
Yeah, let's go, let's get it.
Yeah, let's get it. And then, you know, once I've got it down, like I don't have to practice bumping nearly as often. But,
yeah.
You know, you always need to practice bumping.
Yeah. Now look, we'll fast forward a bit here, and you talk about your debut match, and it was against the Spartans and Black, and
Oh no,
oh, was it not?
my debut match was actually Chad.
Oh,
Howard.
Chad Howard. Okay,
I've had a WPW heavyweight championship match, mate.
Oh wow! All right, former WPW heavyweight champion at that time. He was your debut match.
Yeah.
How did all of that come about, and what was the thought process going through your mind as he was the NZWPW champion at that time, and you're like debuting against the champion?
Nervous and honoured. Like it's not a sort of like I'm going into a championship match, but it's like more of a they expect me to do relatively well, like be able to put on a show, like whilst not the main event, but like it's like still wrestling for top prize, like for their top title is always quite nerve-wracking, just because it's like I need to impress, and on top of that, wrestling like my first match, it's like, oh, what if I don't, what if I don't get the fans behind me? Because I was like, bit trying to sort of get the crowd behind me at that point, and that was the most nerve-wracking because it's so easy to be hateable.
Yeah.
It's really easy to be hateable.
Yeah, everybody wants to be hated.
Exactly.
Yeah, so much easier.
Yeah, so I was nervous, but I like to think I did well. Martin Sterling absolutely loved it. He was loving it. And Chad. Chad, liked it as well, so pretty good.
Like you came back from that match. What was the thought process after debuting? You're like, oh, okay, I've actually debuted. And obviously, the second question to that would be, what do you prefer, being good or being bad? Would you rather be hated or would you rather be cheered? And why?
So the first part, coming back from that after the match, I loved it. Yeah, my feelings, I think it was relief, one of them, because I debuted and I never have to debut again other than in other promotions. It was relief, excitement for learning how to wrestle, and the whole beginning training process is over. Always training, but beginning training process is over, and now I'm going into sort of from match onwards, kind of having my matches and wrestling my matches and sort of learning from the matches rather than the basics at training. That was probably the most exciting part about it, where this can take me, kind of thing. Pretty giddy with excitement all up. And in terms of being a good guy or a bad guy, it's, as I said, it's easy to be hated.
Yeah.
It's so easy, man. Whenever I try being a good guy now, it just comes off as awkward. Because I'm not used to it now.
Right.
I've been saying that I should probably have a couple matches as a good guy, just because, it's probably, I'm gonna go through these phases where I'm good guy and bad guy, but for the moment I'm quite happy being a bad guy, because it's so easy. Having an English accent certainly helps.
He's got an accent, let's hate him.
Yeah, look at my crazy passport, look at my crazy customs.
And you've had some pretty amazing matches with some pretty amazing people. Chad Howard, you've had it with the Spartan. You are a former WPW Hita World Cup champion, which you threw 20 plus men over and became the champion. So let's talk about that part. You becoming the WPW Hita World Cup champion, thought process of afterwards, during, finding out all of the extras of that whole experience. How did that go about, and what did you learn and take away from it?
Yeah, I think when I learnt about it, I learned about the exact same time as everyone else. I heard it. Everyone was getting told the result. Then they said, "Oh yeah, and Cam's going over." So immediately I thought Falcon Kid. But then he looked at me and I was like, "What? What do you mean?" I was like, "Are you sure?" And he was like, "Yep." I'm like, "Okay." So immediately the nerves were on. I was like, "Oh gosh, this is in Nio, close to where my family lives and all that kind of stuff." And I was, again, honoured and nervous because there's the expectations of being a champion. I suddenly had to think about that. How I present myself, how I carry myself. Being, I'm not going to say a leader because I'm still quite young and I'm still learning, but especially among other rookies, sort of, if they need help, letting them know where they can get help, what they need to do, what they need to know, things like that. And afterwards, it wasn't so much of a relief. It was more of a I can't even describe it really.
Yeah, it's really
it's a surreal moment when you're like, Jesus, how did this happen?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah. Is there anything else apart from that in the question?
There's I know what it comes what it's like to be a champion, and I had the same thought because I started thinking that and I had that mentality for a week. Maybe I had that thought in my head of a week. I was like, if once you become champion, it gets easier.
Yeah.
And there was nothing like that.
Yeah.
And once you become champion, it's a lot harder. It just means you have to work 20 times harder than everybody else. You've already busted your ass to try and earn an opportunity and try and become champion, and it's finally happened. And then it's just now I have one or two options. I can either be like, okay, I've done it, or I can be like, okay, I need to work 20 times as more harder, because anyone that wants to become champion, I need to show them that, okay, through hard work, you can get here as well.
Yeah, exactly. Because it feels like you're representing not just NZWPW, but also that championship, what are you going to be remembered for with that championship?
Right.
Because are you going to be remembered for sitting on your ass and sort of not having okay matches like basketball, or are you going to go out there and make it look absolutely like gold?
Yeah.
Are you going to make it look like another world championship?
Yeah.
Because that you're the person that makes it what it is. You're the wrestler that makes it how it is. So.
Yeah. I ask everybody this question as well. It's probably one of my go-to questions that I ask in my interviews. What is your thoughts and your opinion on the New Zealand wrestling scene now? Now how there's more eyes on it from, not just here, and it's slowly getting bigger and bigger, and it's just going to keep getting bigger and bigger. What are your thoughts and opinion on the New Zealand wrestling scene now that there's more eyes on it, international-wise as well?
It's exciting. You know, with people like Will Ospreay coming here every maybe year or couple years, you know. Australian scene getting so big, and we're you know, right up there with them. You know, people look at us and they say, you know, SPW, IPW, same as MCW and stuff like that. You know, it's all in the same conversation. You know, so it's exciting to be a wrestling fan in New Zealand at the moment.
Yeah.
It's exciting to be a wrestling fan all around the world.
Yeah.
Because so much good stuff is going on. Like you don't have to be in the, you know, WWE to put on good matches or watch good matches. You know, you don't have to be in America anymore. You can be anywhere in the world because there's so much good wrestling. And New Zealand and Australia in particular have really shown themselves to be a cut above the rest.
Yeah.
And now there's more eyes coming to Australia and New Zealand, and that's only going to grow and grow and grow.
Yeah.
And, you know, who knows where it will be in like the next 2 years. I would argue even within a year. You know, more big names will come. You know, and yeah, it's exciting. I think that New Zealand wrestling scene is absolutely phenomenal right now, and it makes me proud to be a part of it, really. Yeah. Because every person counts.
Yeah.
Every single person counts.
Yeah.
And every single character, every single you know, every single wrestler adds towards that.
Right.
Yeah. No matter the skill level.
Yeah. What is your ultimate goal that you would like to get out of professional wrestling?
Cool. Cam Owens III. Hopefully, coast to coast. I'd love to work in all the promotions and that New Zealand has to offer, and maybe even Australia overseas. I'd like to, you know, make something of it. And I'd like to see where this takes me more than anything, because you only have really one life, and I guess I choose to live it like this.
Fair enough. Thank you very much for taking the time out and giving us an inside story on Cam Owens. Thank you for sharing your story with us, and thank you for being a part of this episode of Behind the Wrestler, and we'll catch you guys next time.